records, and I'll just want to correct my colleague. The total debt of 10.5 is what you're talking about, 4.7 being the local domestic borrowing in total. So it's not just specific for this period of time that this report talks about. I thank you, Honorable.
Asante Chair wa kamati ya ripoti hii ya leo. Ndio maana nikasema ni deni la ndani, sikusema deni la nje, nimesema deni la ndani. Na hii yote bado inasikitisha Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu Wakenya wamekamuliwa sana. Mimi nikifikiria kama mama kaunti ya Mombasa, leo wajukuu wangu ama vitukuu vyangu watakuja kudaiwa pesa ambazo kwamba hawazijui. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa deni lachukuliwa huku kulipa huku, hii inaonyesha kuwa serikali ama taifa haliendi vizuri. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, linalosikitisha hata zaidi, sisi leo kama wabunge leo tunajadili ripoti hii ya madeni ambayo Kenya iko nayo, wakati wa kuchukua madeni sisi hatuhusishi katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi ningependa kuomba kama mheshimiwa katika bunge hili kuwa madeni yoyote ambayo serikali inatarajia kuchukua iweze kutuletea hapa ndani ya bunge. Mheshimiwa Spika, tupige msasa, tuulize maswali, tujue ni kwa nini. Je, ni deni la dharura? Kama si deni ya dharura, Mheshimiwa Spika, tuweze kupinga, na ikiwa ni deni la dharura tunaweza tukaelewa. Ikiwa serikali haina namna, tuweza kuelewa. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kusema hivi. Naangalia tena nikirudia hapa, nimeona kuna World Bank ambayo ilileta bilioni karibu 16 ya kuweza kusaidia, na nimeona wakizungumza mambo ya boreholes katika sehemu ambazo zimeathirika na ukame. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini mimi nikiangalia sehemu hizi ndio wale ambao wanalia kuwa hizi boreholes hawajapata. Mheshimiwa Spika, na ni utata mkubwa, kwa sababu sisi tunasema kuna kila mwaka bilioni 700 ilikuwa inapotea, na hivi ndio vile pesa huwa zinapotea. Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali inaweza kuwa na nia nzuri pengine ya kuchukua pesa, lakini hizi pesa zinapotea kwenye mifuko ya watu, haziwezi kuleta natija katika taifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nasikitika kama mama katika taifa hili kuona kuwa pesa zinabadhiriwa kiolela olela, pesa zinachukuliwa zienda kwenye mifuko ya watu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumbuka juu ilivyokuwa ndani ya Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, maji yalikuwa yanamiminika, yanamwagika. Ilikuwa aibu katika taifa hili kuona wageni wanaingia wananyeshewa ndani ya airport, wala si nje wakitoka kwenye ndege, wakiwa ndani kwenye check-in wageni wanamwagikiwa na maji, wakati ambapo sisi tunajua pesa za ukarabati zipo, pesa za kufanya mambo haya zipo, lakini hatukuona natija yoyote pale airport. Mheshimiwa Spika, ilikuwa aibu. Aibu nyingine Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tumeona mvua imekuja kubwa sana, hasa katika kaunti ya Mombasa, na kama mama Mombasa kaunti naweza kutuma rambirambi zangu, pole kwa wale ambao walifelewa na jamaa zao, pole kwa wale ambao tulichoona. Naibu wa Rais ameenda kuangalia waathiriwa, badala aomboleze na waathiriwa, yeye ameenda kaanza kutukana magavana. Mheshimiwa Spika, inakuwa mbaya kwa sababu hata hizi pesa zenyewe tunaambiwa kuwa zilikuwa katika mamlaka yake yeye. Kwa hiyo angekuwa mbora zaidi kama naibu wa Rais angeweza kutoa pole kwanza, akasema pengine hili na lili lilifanya tukachelewa kupeleka pesa, lakini pesa ndio hizo tumeleta. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuliko yeye kwenda kusingizia magavana na kuwashurutu kuwa zile pesa mlizopewa za kufanya maendeleo mengine, chukueni muweze kufanya mambo ya disaster. Mheshimiwa Spika, kila mapeni kitolewa katika kaunti huwa ina shughuli yake, na leo gavana akitumia pesa pengine ya mshahara kwenda kufanya mambo ya disaster, ataleta shida nyingine kubwa, kwa sababu wale wafanyikazi wa kaunti leo wakikosa mshahara itakuwa tena ni izara katika taifa nzima. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hilo lilinifanya nikatamausha sana kama mama kaunti wa Mombasa, na sikupenda zile tetesi zilizokuwa zikiendelea kwa sababu ya pesa ambayo ilikuwa katika bajeti. Mheshimiwa Spika, na kwa hiyo mimi napenda kusema hivi, pesa zozote zinazokuja katika taifa hili kwenye msaada wowote ambazo zina malengo yake ziende katika yale malengo ambayo yamekusudiwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa zinazoibiwa ni nyingi, na leo tumezungumza hapa ikatamausha sana kumsikia kiongozi wa wengi akiita mwandishi wa Mheshimiwa Spika, nikaona kuwa pesa zilitengwa za kuweza kufanya skills ambayo ilikuwa inagusa Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Nafikiri nimeona hapa Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini sijaona mambo haya yakitendeka ndani ya Mombasa County Mheshimiwa Spika, na haya ndio yale ambayo tunasema makadi, lakini hayaendi kwa walengo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kila Mkenya ni mtoa ushuru, na kila anayetoa ushuru lazima aweze kupata ile aweze kupata zile pesa zake, utumizi wake uweze kumfikia kule chini. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi najua kati ya malengo ambayo ya kukopa pesa ni kuweza kuzuia Wakenya kulipa ushuru wa juu, lakini hivi karibuni Mheshimiwa Spika, ushuru umetozwa, ushuru mkubwa sana kwa Wakenya. Wakenya mpaka sasa wanalia, ushuru umepanda, kila kitu kimepanda, na deni nalo pia linapanda, wakati ambapo ilikuwa inafaa kama deni limepanda ushuru wa wananchi usiwe juu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kitu ambacho naweza kupongeza katika ripoti hii ni zile pesa zilizokwenda kwa wakulima, kwa sababu wakulima walikuwa wanahitaji sana ili tuweze kuleta mazao, taifa liweze kupata chakula. Mheshimiwa Spika, na napongeza pia zile pesa ambazo zimeenda kwa afya, watu wanahitaji wapate afya bora. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini pia katika hivi equipments ama vitu ambavyo vinatumika ndani ya hospitali. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna hospitali nyingi pia hawajapata vitu hivi. Mheshimiwa Spika, na hapo pia tunakwenda pale, pengine mwananchi chukua 5 na mimi mwizi nichukue 10. Hiyo ndio mambo ambayo inaendelea katika taifa hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo mimi kama mama kaunti napinga haswa uchumi ulivyo mbaya, serikali kuweza kukopa kila siku, inakopa kwa kasi sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali wawache kuomba hii ambayo wameshatoa kwa mwananchi itakuja kutusumbua. Mheshimiwa Spika, na lingine mimi nataka kusema, mkisikia wananchi wanalia kule chini, tuwaelewe, tusiweze kuwapelekea mambo ya ubishi. Tuelewe wananchi hawa, sisi ndio wametuchagua, leo tuko bungeni, wananchi wanalia, hali ziko mbaya, tusiweze kugombana hadharani
kuonyesha yale mambo ambayo si sawa. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati wananchi wanahangaika. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi namalizia nikisema dawa ya deni ni kulipa.
Mheshimiwa Spika,
na kama tumeamua kulipa hii deni, basi tusiwafinye wananchi. Pesa tulizozichukua sisi, tulizokopa, lazima tuletewe hapa na waje hapa katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, watuambie hizi pesa zilienda sehemu fulani, mazao yake yakawa ni hivi, hapa tumebaki na hii, hapa bado tunadaiwa hii. Lakini mambo ya kuletewa figures ambazo zimeandikwa na sisi hatujui pesa zimetumika vipi. Mheshimiwa Spika, hatuwezi kukubali katika bunge la Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wanatuangalia sisi, wametuamini, Spika, leo hii angalia bunge lilivyowazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa kutakuja mjadala katika bunge hii ya kuweza kumfinya mwananchi, Mheshimiwa Spika, bunge lote huwa limejaa watu kule wa kusema ai. Leo mjadala unaohusu mwananchi, wote wamekimbia, wameenda kufanya biashara zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii mimi nachukia, na nitawaambia wabunge wenzangu, hasa wa Kenya Kwanza, hii sehemu yenu yote iko tupu,
na hii inaonyesha vile nyinyi hamwafikirii wananchi wa Kenya, hamwafikirii wale wanahangaika kule chini. Nasikia kulia. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasikia kuliwa. Mjadala huu ni mjadala unaohusu mwananchi wa chini. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi nawaambia chuma ni chenu, mtarudi kule kwa wananchi kutafuta kura, na kule mtapata majibu yenu. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Wako wapi hapa wako?
nafasi hii itamwendea
hivyo mbaya
mbunge wa
serikali kuweza kukopa kila siku, inakopa kwa kasi sana. Mheshimiwa Spika,
Thank you very much,
serikali waache
Speaker.
kuombaomba hii ambayo
I really want to be
wameshatoa
brief.
kwa mwananchi.
I want to thank, first of all, let me thank the chair, Honorable Shule, and his team for bringing up
Itakuja kutusumbua Mheshimiwa Spika. Na lingine mimi nataka kusema, mkisikia wananchi wanalia kule chini, tuelewe, tusiweze kuwapelekea mambo ya ubishi. Tuelewe wananchi hawa, sisi ndio wametuchagua, leo tuko bungeni, wananchi wanalia hali ziko
register of debts because the debt was being managed by Central Bank. But currently we have Central Bank which is managing domestic debts, and also Treasury managing external debts. Honorable Speaker, I think recently we passed what is called
debt anchor. That is a debt at net present value, and which we passed it at 55%
plus or minus to the GDP. But when you see the report, it shows that we are at 66% of GDP. And,
just this week, we passed the supplementary budget with a deficit of 800 billion. That means we are going to add to our debt. And I normally say that as National Assembly, we are actually a contributor to the national debts, especially when we pass budgets with the deficits. You're already telling Treasury and government to go and borrow. So we cannot run away from the blame. Chair, the report speaks to the fact that from May 2022 to April 2023, we signed loans with the 19 external finance entities. Unfortunately, and this is something which we need to be very careful.
Only 3 loans amounted to 24 billion out of 213 was dispersed. And when you look at the report, Treasury is not giving us the reasons why the loans were not dispersed. And that is one of the gaps which the committee should look into. But I will say, because when I was working in Treasury, before I joined this place, I was at one time, I negotiated a loan for this country. And I also managed a project, a donor-funded project. But one of the reasons why there are delays in disbursement is lack of provision of counterpart funds. Because normally when you are negotiating a loan, the donors will tell you, okay, we will fund 80%. Look for the 20%. And most likely, and most instantly, the government does not provide that 20%. And therefore, the donors will not be able to give you the 80%
before you provide the 20%. The other reasons is administrative conditions which they give you. They tell you, preserve or set an office, set a unit, and those kind of things. And if you don't set up, they will not give you the loan. The delayed loan disbursement, I've asked you implications. And you remember 2 weeks ago or what? Something like that. The Condoro budgets, he brought up an issue of the penalties which the country is paying because of not accessing the funds. And she said that we had to pay, I think last financial year, we had to pay 1.5 billion shillings as penalties. These are a lot of money.
I mean, this money you are giving out without any return. And I think we need to look at that.
The other reasons is that we may not benefit from the project by the time the repayment begins. When you delay, all the projects has a beginning and end period. Now, the time you are paying, the time you are accessing all the money and the implementation of the project, then and you start paying, the impact of that project may not assist in repayment of the loan. That's another thing. The other thing is incomplete projects. At times, when the period ends, you may end up with an incompleted project. And that's why you find so many projects. I think we have over 4,000 projects in this country which are not, are not completed. And that's the money which this country, we have put in those projects, and but they are not impacting to the socio-economic welfare of the Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the report says that, points out that the Treasury failed to give them critical information. And it's true. I mean, when you look at the report, they did not provide what we call debt register. We need to have a debt register. That's something very important to this country, which should indicate the implementing agencies. Who is implementing this project? Who is this person? What are the key performance indicators, outputs, and the contract signs? You remember this time of strategy gauge. Up to now, I don't know how much we are supposed to pay and how much we got for strategy gauge, because there are so many contradicting information. Some are saying 300 billion, others say 400 billion. So at the end of the day, we are not sure how much money we took as a loan and how much we are going to pay in the process. The other thing I think in this register, we also need to look at, the register should also have regions in which these projects are being implemented. You see, we may be taking a lot of loans, but these loans may be used in particular regions. What about the distribution of these projects, which are funded by donors, which all of us, we are contributing in payment? And I'll give you an example. Since independent, where I come from, Eastern region, Raw Eastern, we have only got 2 big projects. The Kibwezi, Kitui, Bodoni Road, which is not complete. Then we have Wake Dam, which is not complete, since independent. So, Honorable Chair, I think you need to request, and I hope you could go back to many years to give us a report which shows us for the last 10 years or so how much have we got as loans, how this money has been utilized, how these projects are impacting on the welfare of this country. Chair, as I alluded, this report, why there is a loan disbursement, is mostly is because of lack of budget allocation, and I think this is something which we need to, before Treasury, and I think we have asked a lawyer that we need to look at the loans which have been to be contracted. Before even they go ahead and sign, they should be able to tell us where are they going to get
the counterfeit funds, so that there is no delays in disbursements. And we also need proper planning for the loans. We cannot have taking loans because somebody is giving us loans, and we have that problem. I'll tell you, we have that problem. And we have quite incompetent negotiators in the government. I mean, you hear there's a loan, you run there. You are not even reading what are the requirements for that loan. So at the end of the day, we take loans with high interest rates, and we even don't know what we are going to do with the loan. Mr. Chair, we need to move from commercial loans and domestic loans. Domestic loans have a very bad negative impact on our businesses, because immediately government competes with private sector. We call it a crowding out effect. Many people want to invest in treasury bills and bonds because the security, the risks are lower than giving to private sector. So what we need to do is we need to go for concessional loans. But these concessional loans, we need to look at them and see if they have conditions which we cannot meet.
Let's not go for loans because they are there. Let's look at the conditions of these loans so that at least we can be able to get loans which are going to benefit this country.
The member for your time is up. This is now the chance for the member for Mandera West.
Honorable Speaker, I am eagerly waiting for the next order.
Member for Kaiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I want to take this chance to thank the chairman of the committee for the work they have done on this report. Mr. Speaker, the report is good, as I can say, but it has some question marks, if I can say, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, we all know that borrowing is not bad, because we all borrow. Even us, as members of parliament, we do borrow. And as a country, to borrow is not a big problem. But the problem, Mr. Speaker, comes when we borrow the money, and instead of prioritizing what we are going to do with the money, Mr. Speaker, we do projects which are not a priority to the country, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, as we are speaking, Mr. Speaker, they are the necessity of this country. For example, if we talk of food security, it is true, Mr. Speaker, food security is key to our country. And you go to countries like West Africa, you get that the economy is not that strong. But because of food security, they can do their daily activities smoothly because of food security. Now, as you're speaking, Mr. Speaker, it's a rain season in our country. Mr. Speaker, now, as you know, in our country, some parts of the country, Madam Speaker, has a problem of water, especially where I come from in Lower Eastern, Mr. Speaker. But now, Mr. Speaker, there is a project which was started 2016-2017, Fakendam, Mr. Speaker. And if, Mr. Speaker, we prioritize that dam, right now as you are speaking, there's a lot of water going to the Indian Ocean, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, after the rains, just 1 month or 2 months will be crying of water. People will be walking to kilometers to look for water. And as we talk now, Mr. Speaker, the way situation the economy is, Mr. Speaker, if we can have water to some of areas like Lower Eastern, whereby we have a problem of rains, Mr. Speaker, that water can be used for irrigation. If we use the water for irrigation, Mr. Speaker, and we do farming, we can improve in food security, and we avoid looking money for relief food or asking for donors to give relief food to our people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I wonder, because we do borrow money, and instead of doing, like now we have so many projects, Mr. Speaker, stored projects across the country. If we can balance, Mr. Speaker, if we borrow and balance and complete projects in our country, Mr. Speaker, I think it can be benefit to our country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can say that in the current economy, Mr. Speaker, like now, it is true, we need money. And our budget sometimes, because as we can say now, the debt ceiling of our country is going to 10 trillion, Mr. Speaker. It's a threat to our country, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, if we can be transparent, and if we are borrowing money, we be open to each other, and we stop blaming each other. Oh, this government did this, or the other government did this. Now we need the current government to take the mantle and move on. We want to see what they do with the money they borrow. We want to see the project, the stored projects done, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I went to my constituency, Mr. Speaker, and there's a road which comes from Kasikeo to Kilungu, Mr. Speaker. And this road cuts across 2 counties, Mr. Speaker. And now as we are speaking, the road is cut off by the rains. You cannot now communicate from Masailand to Cumberland through Kasikeo Road. Mr. Speaker, it's a serious issue which needs a lot of assistance. And when I approached Kera, Mr. Speaker, they told me there's no money. Madam Speaker, now you can see how the people of Kaiti will suffer, because now the road is cut off. We depend on agriculture. We do farming. Mr. Speaker, now we cannot transport our youth from the lower side to upper side. We cannot transport our produce from Haiti to Nairobi through that road because already it's cut off. Mr. Speaker, I think this is some of the projects or some of the priorities we need to give if we borrow, Mr. Speaker. We have other ways, Mr. Speaker. As a country, we need to chart a way forward. Yes, we are borrowing. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to say I saw the government, the current government, trying to increase taxes to increase the revenue. But I think this is not the way to go because, Mr. Speaker, the more we increase taxes, we are not going to get the revenue as they think. But we'll create more poor people. We'll create poverty in our country, Mr. Speaker. Instead of creating atmosphere of our people to do business, to create revenue, Mr. Speaker, will be creating a problem to our country. Mr. Speaker, it's important when we are doing our project, Mr. Speaker, we look the loopholes we have in our country. And Mr. Speaker, one loophole we have in our country is corruption. We borrow money, but that money, almost half of the money goes to people's pockets. And we divert, we lose focus, Mr. Speaker. And we need to fight this animal of borrowing in the House, Mr. Speaker. Because if we make sure that we seal the loophole of corruption in our country, I think, Mr. Speaker, we will be in a position to do great in our country. Mr. Speaker, why do we borrow? Yes, we borrow to meet our needs. Because sometimes, Mr. Speaker, we pass budgets and we don't have enough resources, Mr. Speaker. It's good, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, as we do this, I want to say that the time has come as a country, we chat, we talk, we talk in one voice to see how we can avoid this high borrowing, Mr. Speaker. I remember when this government was coming to the, taking over the government, they are saying that they don't want to borrow. But now they are borrowing even more than the other government, Mr. Speaker. So I think we need to do something. We need to chart the way forward, and we need to see how we can do, we can be independent. We can use the little resources we have. If we can concentrate with, for example, we concentrate with one item like in infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. If we make sure that we have good roads which enters our villages, our farmers, areas like West Kenya, Western Kenya, and Nyanza, whereby they do farming, and also Central, Mr. Speaker. If we have good roads, they will be transporting their produce, and they'll make good revenue. And that can help our economy to grow, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I want to support the report, but I want to advise the government, Mr. Speaker, we need to do a lot to avoid this borrowing. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Doris Donya, member for Kisii.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Such a good moment when we are now talking of what is on the ground, how our economy is, and when we look back, Mr. Speaker, during Mwai Kibaki's time, he left office and Kenyans were very excited that our economy has improved. When we have more debts, Mr. Speaker, there are so many things that happen in a particular country. Even the borrowing rates, Mr. Speaker, goes high. Business people can't do without borrowing. That affects their businesses. You can see at this particular time, so many bank members have closed down their bank accounts or they've been rendered inactive. Most of the business people, Mr. Speaker, they can't even afford to have their next products or produce because what they sell, it's directly into their stomach, not to their banks. And Mr. Speaker, when you borrow money, there's that, if I can quote, kuomba harusi kulipa matanga. It has always been a cry we have this debt, we have that debt. When there is borrowing, there are good photos that are taken. Media reports, today Kenya has received this loan, this and that. Sometimes you are never even told what that money has done. But come to the time of payment, that is when it is now kulipa ni matanga. There is a lot of crying. Oh, we need to do this with our budget so that we can pay. You go to the ground, you want to understand what this money did to its citizens. Things are changing, the economic times are very hard, Mr. Speaker. Currently, as I stand here, there are so many answers we can give as leaders to improving our economy instead of having these loans. Like half of Kenya is not developed. Half of it is left idle. Our land, it's not cultivated. The rains are here. Yes, Mr. Speaker. We have no good storage mechanisms. The rains will be off. We will start the drought. People will be crying of hunger. While we have this precious commodity called water, carrying our people, destroying properties and everything, instead of it being stored so that it can be used in the future. You saw the planting of trees, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if it came at such a particular time that with the rains, definitely all the trees that were planted have been washed away. There is nothing you can do when you have a lot of water and there are plants that have been planted, Mr. Speaker. We have missed on how to place our priorities. We seem to be prioritizing things that are not supposed to be given a priority. Like now, Mr. Speaker, go to universities. They are crying. We don't have funds. Those are schools. Education is key. The best gift, Mr. Speaker, you can give to your child is education. Yes, the government has promised they are giving education, but they are not funding what they've promised to give. Come to JSS, the pain that those teachers go through, Mr. Speaker. One teacher teaching 12 subjects. For example, you trained as a sign language teacher. How do you train that if you didn't train for it? Which subject will you have to offer, Mr. Speaker, as an alternative? Why did I bring up this issue? Misplaced priorities. If we put our priorities right, Kisii County alone is a food basket. It can feed the whole of this country. You go there, the land is very green, Mr. Speaker. You just love it if you are flying. You are flying. You look down and you see these people are blessed. It rains well, the grass, the trees are green, but shocking is immediately the rains are, if it rained 11 in the morning, by 6 in the evening, women are carrying jerrycans to the river to fetch water. Yet as a country, we can't understand that instead of taking loans to do other things, we can have dams in Kisii, we have plenty of water. Why do we have good dairy farmers from Central? Because they have, I can say they are 60%. They have 60% connectivity of water. The other good places like Kisii, Nyanza, we go to Lowland, to Western, it's also green. We can have good projects done there. Kitale, we can have enough food. So, Mr. Speaker, before we even talk of these loans, if I take a loan as Donya, believe you me, I will pay that loan. I will not wait to use that money. Then later I say, oh, that money was not spent well. Now we have to look for another way so that you can pay that loan. From where? You must have at all times, Mr. Speaker, be accountable. I liked what Honorable Zamzam said. You've taken a loan. Before even you take that loan, do public participation. Let members of parliament do discussions of that loan so that next time we will not have 3 people, 4 people signing that loan. But when things go haywire is when we are told now, oh, come together, we have to do this and that so that we can pay that loan. We are getting it wrong somewhere, Mr. Speaker. And if things continue going the way they are, common mwananchi out there, they are saying, vitu haviko sawa. Mambo ni mbaya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The member for Laikipia East, the Honorable Magi Kiunjuri. Kiunjuri, your mic has a problem, so use the one in front of you. Could you give him the one next to him? Or is that whole row? It's a whole row, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise in support of this report. The chairman and his committee has done a good job. It's also good for Kenyans to know where we are and where we are coming from. And on the onset, Mr. Speaker, loans are not bad, because even those who are in business, entrepreneurs in this country, if you like, you assess how many successful Kenyans have no loans, might be you'll get none. Because even those with billions want to have a trillion to continue with their businesses. The only problem with a loan is when you take a loan not knowing what to do with that loan. Or take a loan with the wrong projection. Or take a loan and you get excited and you use it for the wrong purpose. And therefore, we really need to ask ourselves where the rain started beating us. The loans we are discussing today, they are accumulation. It's not just a loan that was taken the last 1 year. We are talking of loans that had been taken time to time from the government of Mwai Kibaki, administration of Uhuru Kenyatta, and now you have the administration of William Samoei Ruto. What you ask ourselves are the experiences that we have. How did Kibaki manage his loans? At what time did our appetite for loan superseded the reason even why we are borrowing these loans? How have we been managing our loans? Have we been able to evaluate ourselves? Did we even have a plan before you took the loans? Because even in business, you have to have a business plan. What do you intend to do? And the outcome. If you're getting a moratorium, for how long? If you're going to repay your loan, at what particular juncture are you also going to bridge the gap and now start counting on profit? Because a loan is a loan. Either it is taken by Mama Boga, whether it is taken by an industrialist or a government. The end game is that when a government borrows, there is a grace period whereby at that particular juncture, we shall also be able to break even. If you are borrowing for roads, might be after 50 years, the country starts benefiting out of that loan. Or we are borrowing so that this road can trigger economic activity here and there. If it's about electricity, to trigger economic activities. They are supposed to stimulate. Any loan is supposed to stimulate the economy one way or the other. Some short-term, others long-term. We were told when we went to take SGR that might be we shall start getting benefits 50 years. I agree. The loans we are taking today, some loans, another 20 years. But the question that we must ask ourselves now, where we are today, we are talking of hunger in the country, eradicating hunger. We are talking of the cost of living. If we start blame game, who took the loan, how was the loan used, how are you going to take this one, then we shall not have addressed the question that is facing us today. Because, Mr. Speaker, this administration is only 1 year old. The loans we are paying were taken 5, 6, 7 years ago. We know of how the boats were taken. And therefore, we cannot say that this administration came the other day and they should now be able to explain to Kenyans why we are in a deep hole. The explanation is very clear, that we have a debt here, and whoever comes in, even after William Samoei Ruto, will come and shoulder the responsibility of paying the loans that this administration will take. And therefore, we must realize that the loans that we got from the previous government, it is the high time we start now planning. What we need to do is to give information to Kenyans, for Kenyans to understand every step that we are taking to stabilize this economy. That already we are in deep sea, the waves are there, the currency, the current is very, very, very heavy for us, and how do we navigate out to safety? Mr. Speaker, we need now to think of short term, not long term. If you look at all these loans, the way they are tabulated here, I have looked at them. Some have gone to pastoral economy, some have gone to agriculture value chain, others have gone to issues to do with the syndicated short-term, other syndicated loans. If you look at it, macro, small and medium enterprises, and they are distributed across the country. Nobody can argue that these loans were directed to one region of Kenya. They are distributed all over. They are in northeastern, they are in coast, they are in western, they are in Nyanza, they are in central province, and therefore it is our problem. When we come to blame each other, let us remember these monies are being paid and they were taken all over. No one region can say that we benefited, the other say we never benefited. And therefore, it's a question of asking ourselves, did they go to the right usage? If you look at some of these loans, they went to enhance water, issues to do with the water, others about agriculture. The one question we should ask ourselves, when 5-10 billion was taken to a certain region to develop agriculture value chain, was it used for that purpose? If it was about water, was it for that purpose? If you look at, for example, the last 15 years, we have done a lot of work in northern Kenya on issues to do with water. Look at what is happening today. The El Nino is here with us, they will be left with no drop of water. Look at western region, a lot of agriculture value chain, most of the money went there. Today, are we able to pay those loans out of the intended use of that money? Look at small and macro. Are we able to generate money? Can we say 10 years down the line, these are the benefits? Because you ought to have seen the benefits that have been accrued from the loans that we took. Today, once you talk of agriculture value chain, do we have any supporting institution that's supporting agriculture? Both livestock and horticulture, and even the cash crop you have in this country, all directorates are dead. Sugar directorate, dead. Tea directorate, dead. Coffee directorate, dead. Horticulture, everything is dead. Look at pastoralist areas. Are we improving the animals that we have there? Are we controlling diseases? Are we still selling the same bull, 20, 30 kgs, when we are supposed to have gotten a hybrid that can give us 100 kg? Are we supporting those farmers? Are we supporting those institutions that can give us immediate outcome? When I was Minister for Agriculture, we came out with a program that we required only 2.4 billion to make Kenya a seed, potato seed exporter of potato seed, whereby we could have been able to produce all the seed we require in this country and start exporting, and the program was only taking 21 months. Today, if you look at how you can improve our animal breed, in 3 years' time, you can turn around, and I know Mr. Speaker is around here, will be able to tell us that you can turn that economy in as short as 2 years, 3 years. Today, a coffee farmer will be lining up looking for a grafted seed when we have a directorate of our coffee which is dead and cannot be able to be supported. The issues we'll be coming up with today is asking ourselves, are we still going to rely on lanes or we are going to rely on water? Because at the end of the day, Israel relies on water. Kenya relies on lanes. Egypt relies on water. Kenya relies on lane. At what juncture shall we transit from issues of thinking traditional way of doing things to modern way of doing things, using very small amounts of money, turn the economy of this country, and we'll be committed.
Because end game is that I come today, I become the minister. What I see is the 5 years I'm the minister for.
You actually have 1 more minute.
Thank you. The issue here is our mindset. When we come in as an administration of William Samoei Ruto, and we are thinking 5 years or 10 years only, what will benefit us as leaders in only 5 years? We are not planning for our future generation. When we come in as administration of UDA and as opposition as MIO, and not thinking about our mother country, Kenya, that tomorrow, if Azimio will ever take over, they will take over from where Kenya Kwanza left. Mr. Speaker, I believe it is high time that we think as Kenyans and not as political parties, and us know who is leading this country, and that this Kenya is our baby, and together we must take care of it.
Thank you. Fujo 504.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I've been waiting to make my contribution on this report by the Committee on Public Debt and Privatization Committee. And on the onset, I would not shy away from beginning with what I always do begin with, and which is very important that Kenyans always remember, so that as we progress with the issue of debts, and I like the preceding speaker who was just spoken after me, that this debt has been accumulating over the time. And sometimes there's no need of really just throwing blame game from one place to another, because these things were happening when we were in this country. That I always begin by telling this House that by the time Mwai Kibaki leaves, the so-called debt was only 1.89 trillion. This is very important, so that you see where we are coming from. And that means Moi, who ruled for 25 years together with Kenyatta, who also ruled for those years, about 13, as we know, must have made the debt to be much, much lower. Because if Kibaki is leaving it at 1.89 trillion on June 2013, that is what was our debt. But then all of a sudden from 2013 June, by the time we are getting to 2022, June, that debt has gone to 8.588 trillion. So it's really for us to know and comprehend where we are coming from and what happened between June 2013 and June 2022. That we had not only doubled, in fact, if I go to percentum, which I still have here, Honorable Speaker, we increased debt by 353%. That was terrible. And I love to hear from former Waziri, because he is actually putting it in perspective, that everybody who comes borrows and goes away and imagines his 5 years and walks away, or 10 years and goes away. But we must start looking at this debt as something that is for a holistic view for the entire country. Now, Honorable Speaker, the statistics we have are so limited, but I'm happy that the House, for the first time and in many years, the 12th Parliament did not have this opportunity, is able to speak about public debt, how much, what we are borrowing, where we are taking it to. In the 12th Parliament, there was nothing like this, because people would speak about the budget and concentrate on expenditure rather than where we are getting the money, especially on debt. So in this report, this is just 12 months, Honorable Speaker, just 12 months. And it's beginning from 1st of May 2022 to 31st August 2022, and goes all the way to January 2023, and then 30th April 2023. And then again, it's so specific because it's just dealing with foreign debt. It has not included internal borrowing, which is basically made up of the treasury bills and treasury bonds, which otherwise, like I heard somebody indicate, is also very, very high. So for me, I see space, and great space, for this Parliament, that if we continue with this discourse the way we are going, Honorable Speaker, we have a chance of even now going to legislate and laws that will actually force the executive to, and the treasury therefore, to bring the loans that they sign with international organizations, whether it's the World Bank, IMF, the London Club, the Paris Club, or whatever other bilateral country to parliament. And the case studies are very rich, Honorable Speaker. Not only will that be happening in Kenya, but countries like Ghana have already gone that direction, whereby by the time the borrowing is done, Parliament actually approves it. But when you talk to our treasury, they'll tell you that that will take too long, it is complex, it will waste time. But that's not the case. Zimbabwe is another very good example where Parliament will actually resolve the issue of debts. And when you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, I'm proud of this committee because they tell you that externally we have borrowed at the risk of repeating, but let me just repeat, over 19 loans and the disbursement is very little. I don't want to repeat what people talked about this. The only danger in this has been what is called the commitment fees, which I'm sure many speakers spoke about, that we have not received the money yet, but we are paying some commitment fees. The last time I heard about it, it was 1.5 billion. You can imagine that. That because you are not using this money which you committed yourself to take, and you have not taken it, Honorable Speaker, so you have to pay 1.5 billion. I'm aware in the last financial year we paid 499 million in form of commitment fees alone. And that is quite a substantial amount of money. So then the issue of we must take the debt, like one of the honorable members did speak on it, when we are ready to take it, not just to rush and take a loan because the loans are available. Honorable Speaker, the other thing I would wish then to speak on is the issue of how the debts are dispersed. And I think very many members have spoken on this, that it needs to be dispersed quickly so that it can actually have an impact on the budget itself, finance the budget, because these debts are taken not only for a joke, but actually to finance the budget. At a time when we are having now liquidity difficulties, we have the exchange rate difficulties, we have imbalances in the balance of trade, and very high debt servicing expenditure, then we need to have these monies dispersed quickly. The issue of management of the debts is another issue that I would really want to speak about, because if you manage your debt well, you will always remain afloat and survive the rigors of economy. And your currency will also survive the shock waves that do come with the rising interest rates. Because like now, when you look at Kenya, many investors will be very shy because they are not sure whether we shall be paying the Eurobond or not be paying that particular Eurobond. So they are prospecting, and therefore they would not want to do business with us. So the debt management becomes very important. And historically, debt management has been dangerous for countries. If in recent past you want to speak about Greece, which is just the other day, and the other country in Eastern Asia, but I would even take it back to the times of Khedive Ismail in Egypt, who took so many loans and he was unable to pay the loans, and therefore foreign countries came in, notably France and Britain, to just take over the Suez Canal, take over the economy of the country and start managing it. And I think the recent most example has been the vivid one in Greece, which could not manage itself. So debt management became very important. And then debt reporting. We are seeing the Treasury still lagging. It's not really willing to give full information and full disclosure on the issues of debts and even who borrowed those debts and where the debts went to. And this will be very, very important that this committee continue bringing reports to this House so that we may know exactly the amount of money that Kenya owes other countries. In fact, as we speak today, and I'm happy I overheard the President speak on this one recently, not more than 1 month ago, that even the government itself, is not very sure about the real debt stock that we have in this particular country, and that there's need to actually get information and mop up information to establish that exactly how much do we owe, not only the foreign partners, but also the internal partners, because we don't have details because of lack of a debt register on the debt stock that the country is actually owing to the people outside there. So it's very important that we establish a debt register and we become very easy with debts. What has happened, formerly Honorable Speaker, is that the Treasury and people in government, Treasury particularly, don't want to declare these debts clearly. It's like a hiding. And that is why the Eurobond has become a problem for us, that Eurobond was taken, and I'm happy the member who spoke just after me was Waziri. I'm so proud to be here with Waziri Kiunjuri. And when this Eurobond was taken, we are even told it never reached Kenya. It's like at one point when the debate on corruption was taking very serious stock, there are people in government who now found an opportunity within the external borrowing and borrowing as an avenue to actually take this money away. And that's how we lost the Eurobond, because you take the debt and then it disappears in the air before it lands. And we have another case study of KPLC. KPLC, when we looked at the statistics of how it has borrowed as a government entity, they had a loan of about 17 billion. But when brought to table to speak about how they borrowed the 17-point-something billion, and Chairman, I'm sure you are aware of this. Chairman, are you following this? The KPLC did indicate that they are not aware that they have such a
Thank you. The member, the Honorable Farah Malim, EGH.
Mr. Speaker, can I have the, yeah. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to weigh in on this. I also want to thank the committee for having done such a unique exercise. For the longest in this country, Parliament never knew how our debt was collected, who took it, for what purpose, and whether that purpose itself was achieved. There are a lot of debts that we're paying right now that were ghost in terms of the implementation, in terms of projects and programs. We took the debts. Kenyan masses are paying for it, but it ended up in lining up the pockets of the political elite that was there at the time. Mr. Speaker, as Honorable Omboko put it, the debt at the time when Kibaki left office was about 1.8 something. Today, I think it's close to 10 trillion. 10.5 trillion. You can imagine how we shot that thing almost 1,000% in the shortest possible time. Syndicated loans are loans that ends up largely in the pockets of the political elite. Eurobond.
How do you define syndicated loans again?
Eh?
How do you define syndicated loans again?
Syndicated loans.
How do you define them?
I will define them, Mr. Speaker.
You say they're loans that enter pockets?
Yes. They end up, because when you hear of syndicated loans always, these are loans that are taken from commercial banks. And because they're taken for commercial banks, when you're going to go and ask for a Eurobond, for example, they force you to go and pay those loans that you took from banks in their own that region. When you go for these other commercial banks, like SGR, one, they're punitive in terms of the interest that they have. And secondly, they do not insist on a serious project and financial audit of those loans. But when you take it from the World Bank, or you take it from IMF, or you take it from some of these other bilateral bodies that are very big, then of course, one, the interest is almost concessional, very, very cheap. Secondly, they make sure that that money goes to the purpose for which it was intended. So the percentages of commissions that ends up in the pockets of people who are in the government is not there. That's why the SGR is costing us, if not twice, 3 times what ordinarily it would have cost us. The Ethiopians paid for a much longer one, dual track, electrical, for a cheaper price than what we paid for ourselves. Because the money was stolen. The money was stolen. When we're given loans for certain critical sectors of the agriculture of this country, and we're supposed to enhance the capacity of our National Cereals and Produce Board, enhance the capacity of our farmers, help them with value addition, we don't do that. The farmers go for a bumper harvest, they're now subjected to market forces. Instead of the government buying these things as a strategic reserve, all of it, at a guaranteed minimum returns, they are told now to sell it to the market. When they sell it, there's a shortage. When there's a shortage, people import from outside. When they import from outside, there is where, again, the political elite makes its money from. You allow the coffee industry, you allow the sugar sector to go down the way it has gone down. You give an opportunity yourselves to go and import the Comesa, the what you call all other sorts of Brazilian sugar. You import from all those places and you make a bomb, you make a kill. You make a kill. And that is exactly what it is. I keep saying that somebody is stealing his own money. There's no way you can go and account for that money. You have a business right now, you have your money in your account, it belongs to Honorable Kinjuri, who's a minister, a one-time minister, and then if Honorable Kinjuri decides to steal from himself, there's no way you can stop that. This country is being robbed by the very people who are supposed to be the trustees of this country. The trustees are supposed to, are the ones who are stealing it. I can see here, Honorable Kinjiri was talking about how we can help our livestock sector. A small country like Botswana, whose livestock sector was developed by Kenyan experts. Kenyan livestock experts are the ones who developed that sector. Is exporting beef to all over the world. We have a potential in this country here which no any other African country has except Ethiopia and Somalia in terms of the livestock numbers we have here. Do we want to develop them? No, we don't want to develop them. We're importing everything from South Africa these days. Our coffee sector, which was supposed to be one of the best and a trailblazer in the continent and in the world, was destroyed. The tea sector, by the way, the coffee that gives us the biggest competition in the world right now is the Vietnamese coffee. The Vietnamese coffee was introduced by an international civil servant who was a Kenyan. He's the one who introduced it there. So the idea came from here. The same way the idea for the European Union comes from East African community, but then we destroyed our own, and they borrowed it from us, and they have the European Union that works very well. Mr. Speaker, I thought I had 10 minutes. I can see I'm being put on some notice. Can I? No, I don't think so. Anyway, I'll beg you for some more minutes anyway. So, Mr. Speaker, I see here money that has been set aside for the livestock sector in northern Kenya and other places. I hope it comes out true. I hope it comes out true. Because this is going to revolutionize completely. It's not much. Horn of Africa, there's the groundwater resilience for Horn of Africa. We are now, our whole region is cut off from the rest of the country. Why? Because we don't have a water harvesting, surface runoff water harvesting, we don't have. We could have harvested all that water. There are countries in the world where rivers flow through them, and those rivers don't drain in the seas. They make sure that at the point of the sea it is rerouted and it's put in there as reserves or reservoirs for their people. For their
Honorable, for 1 more minute.
Two, please.
There's pressure on other people, other members to speak.
Yeah, I don't know how my minutes were.
One more minute, sir.
Anyway. And that is where the problem is, Mr. Speaker. How do we treat corruption? How do you treat people who are not patriotic? And those people are not ordinary people. These are the people who are the trustees of the country. The trustees of the country. Every shortage in this country is an opportunity for the political class to make money out of it. And the shortage comes in expensive. It destroys the lives of Kenyans, and we destroy sectors of our economy. The sugar sector is gone, the coffee sector is gone, the tea sector is gone, the pyrethrum sector is gone. The only reason why the flower sector is still flourishing is because it's in the hands of people who are foreigners. And the same foreigners do what you call transfer billing, which means the money never comes to us. Our people don't even get paid properly. We don't even have the regulatory system to protect our workers and protect the produce from our country that ends up in other parts of the world, like the flour, because of corruption. Because of corruption. These so-called cartels in every sector, they work with the political class. So I don't know when we are going to get an ordinary person in this country to lead this country for us to make the change, the revolutionary changes that every Kenyan yearns for. I don't know, Mr. Speaker. I don't know whether you're going to run for the presidency. I know you have a party of your own. I don't know how corrupt you will be, but I don't think you'll be corrupt.
I have no comment on that. The Honorable Salasia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have the observation from the report.
The Honorable Farah, I order that you sit and listen to Honorable Salasia before you leave.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you so much. From the report that has been given, I want to support it 100%. And Mr. Speaker, my observation, the short period of time that I've been in this parliament or I've been involved in the budget process when it comes to the committee at committee level, I've observed that there is a lot of things that are happening behind the camera. You will realize that when this funding, the ministry will tell you that these are the donor funding. But when you ask them what kind, they will give you like like control. So you ask yourself, how is it essential to our country? And in my own understanding is that, Mr. Speaker, as a parliament, we need to establish an office. We have the office of the Auditor General. We have the office of the control of the budget. We also need to establish an office in the Constitution that is independent, that will guide about the issues of the loans, so that we find, like even right now, when you ask to get the deeper details about the loans, you will not get it. That's why we need to come up as a house to establish an office of the debt control. And also, we need also to come up with an office that will also guide the members on the policies when it comes to the revenue generation, so that we can avoid the challenges that we went through to come up with the Finance Act that cannot even heal the problems that this country is facing. Last, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that some of the policies that are being made by the executive, you will realize that this, the House has been taken over by the executive. And whatever that is being brought from the executive will not go under through the scrutiny. It becomes of the majority numbers. And that is why we are saying, look at this matter, how this issue of the oil has been undertaken. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that we called the CS to come and even clarify to the members. But there's no anyone who is who wants to bother it. And that is why we are saying, look at they're saying that they want to borrow, and they'll be paying money to those G2G after 6 months. But today, you realize that the exchange rate, they are not even factoring in about the exchange rates. That's why we are saying that there are some other things that we need also to come up as a country and say no. And we're looking at, we want to thank the Kibaki and even the expressway. We need to go for the loans that will bring value and add the GDP to our country. And that is why we see things like the expressway, They are making value. The Thika Superhighway. Those are the things that we are asking, and I would wish that the G2G is also another loan that is coming and is going to affect this country. And Mr. Speaker, we need to bring the Minister of Energy, Chirchir, to come and explain to this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support the report.
Thank you. These two members remaining, I would remind the next speaker to remind the person speaking next after him so that we're able to get all of us speaking. The Honorable Member for Sotik.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also add my voice on this very important report. On the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee for doing an excellent job and bringing out issues to do with public debt. Mr. Speaker, this country belongs to all of us. And when we are speaking about the issue affecting all Wananchi, the cost of living does not select where a person comes from. It touches across the board. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that when we are talking about this issue of public debt, I want to say we have to look at the borrowing of these loans. Right from the word go, what is it in this agreement? We need to look at the details. Because as I say, the devil is in the details. And Mr. Speaker, this is the area we must look at. Because we could be signing for something which is going to kill our children. Mr. Speaker, the future generation of this country is going to blame us. Because if you take loan, as Mheshimiwa Kiunjuri was saying, and we don't know, we have no plan on how to use this money. Use the money, to use the funds for the benefit of the people of this country. Use the funds to stimulate the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, the area which I know and I have seen this Kenya Kwanza government has done, and I'm proud of, is the issue of subsidized fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, I come from Sotik, I'm the MP Sotik, and I've seen the impact of this fertilizer which was given. There is now plenty of food. And I'm very sure, Mr. Speaker, if we address the issue of food security, because, Mr. Speaker, in the past, we have had to import food. And it has been very difficult because it really drains the treasury. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, if we can address the production side of the economy, it will be very, very important. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about tea. Mr. Speaker, as we speak now, we are taking our tea from those factories of KTDA, from Sotik and other areas, in sacks, Mombasa. We must insist that we have to add value on our tea. Mr. Speaker, tea has been a major foreign exchange earner, and it will continue being the same. But if we kill the sector which has been feeding this country, Mr. Speaker, I think it's unfair. Mr. Speaker, I also want to ask the government to look at the issue of dairy farming. Dairy farming is an area which is very important, livestock in general, so that we can be able to assist our farmers. In that case, we'll be asking the government to actually put more money in places where we benefit more. Mr. Speaker, I want to also speak briefly on the issue of borrowing by other agencies like the universities, like the county governments. There's a lot of borrowing there. Speaker, we must put our hand there. And Mr. Speaker, I want to ask this House to take control. The chairman of this committee, I want to thank him for having done a very good job, and we want you to stick and make sure that you follow whatever is happening in this budgetary process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
I support the report.
Member for Rangwe, could you make your point in 2 minutes?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Make sure that I do it with precision in exactly 2 minutes. And I'm rising to add my voice to this report as I support it. And I want to thank the Honorable Chair for a job well done and the levels of aggression that are shown by this committee. Yesterday he had items he brought to the plenary. Today also he's here. It shows that he's active and is doing a good job. And I celebrate you, my brother. It's a report on the loans constructed by the national government over a period of 3/4 of a year. And I want to thank this committee for really taking its time to interrogate the loans that had been indicated to have been contracted. Today I was in a certain sitting. I was with one of the PSS who are custodians of the monies of this country and the financial systems, and he indicated that 60% of the revenues that are generated by this country go to servicing loans. 60% go to servicing loan. 30% of the monies are used on as a recurring budget. 10% goes to the counties. And if there is any development that is to be done, Honorable Speaker, this development can only be done through getting loans. And loans which are obtained, Honorable Speaker, there is no specificity in the projects that are done by these loans. Honorable Speaker, the loans, as has been indicated in this report, some of them are used they are used in sectors that target social returns other than financial returns, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I don't know where the spirit of Kenya, who killed the spirit of Kenya is a person I don't know. Who this demon was who killed the spirit of Kenya that made us forget our anthem that says, na tujenge taifa letu, huu ndio wajibu wetu, Kenya yastahili heshima. As long as we have people in office whose interest is their stomachs, as long as we have Kenyans who are serving in noble positions, whose interest is not kuwa na wajibu, whose interest is not taking responsibility of putting Kenya in the next, thank you, Speaker, putting Kenya in the next level, I am telling you, we are living a terrible, terrible country for the next generation. How I pray that we just remember that we have an anthem to honor that unites us as Kenyans, even to the extent of the loans that we borrow. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you so much.
There being no other interest in the motion, I would then request the mover to go ahead and reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to thank all the members for their continued support to the Debt Committee and for their great contributions. Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply. And Honorable Speaker, I'll request that we defer putting of the question pursuant to Standing Order 53.3. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much. So the question on this particular motion will be put when the House next sits. Honorable members, the time being 20 seconds to 7 p.m. This House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 28th of November 2023 at 2:30.